I'm scared of the implications of my data being collected, but I'm not scared of lack of privacy because I know the kind of age we live in, and information age means that information about you would be collected at some point or the other.
No rain.
Folks, hello and welcome back to the Naren Agarwal show. We are here in the 21st century recording this video on Zoom, all the way from Calcutta, India, where I am, to Melbourne, Australia, where our guest today is. And our conversation is really going to be about a lot of 21st century stuff. It is about cyber security. I have here with me a dear friend of mine from school who's been so successful already. Vatsalya is a technologist who engages people in interesting conversations around security and cyber security. He has completed his tertiary education at Monash University with a bachelor's in software engineering. In his time in university, he also managed to come second with his team in a nationwide all Australia cybersecurity challenge. He currently works in cybersecurity at a technology services company called Telstra Purple in Australia. This guy knows his technology and is enthusiastic about cybersecurity, and I want to learn from him. So, hello and welcome to the show. Vatsalya, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Naren. Thanks for having me on the show.
Vatsalya, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. I have so many questions about cybersecurity. Some questions I'm scared about, some questions I laugh about, and I'm sure the viewers are. And people like me who don't know much about the details of technology would love to learn from you. But having said that, right in your background, I see something cool. What is that? I love speaking to people who are too much into technology. Explain to me what is that. Can you move and show us like what exactly is it?
Sure. It's called a nanolith. They're individual light panels that you can essentially attach to your background, and you can change the colors and sort of mess around with it just to spice up essentially your workplace. Since I've been working from home for the past year and a half, I just thought might as well put something around to make my workspace a bit easier, neater on the eyes.
That's amazing. Can you change colors on that?
Yes, I can. It's actually connected to my Google Home, and coming to Google Home as well, talking about IoT and security, it sort of blends into a single idea, right? So yeah, I can use my Google Home using voice to change the color. So
Nice.
I can sort of
change the color for us right now.
Sure. Hey Google, change the canvas to blue.
Let us see change the color. Let us see change the color change.
Or hey Google, change all lights to blue.
Sure.
Oh, that was cool, bro. That was cool. Cheers. Thanks for doing that for us, man.
No worries.
Vatsalya, like, so get to the conversation. What is cybersecurity? What is cybersecurity? What is internet security? Explain to a layman like me.
Over the past, I'll probably start with the fact that over the past 20 years, since 2000, with the internet boom, security everything is sort of connected into a single network. It's called the internet. Everyone is communication is rapidly increasing, and we're all getting more and more connected. With that, so your attack vector or someone who is nefarious can try to exploit that and exploit certain services such as you and your personal data, or more importantly, enterprises in the corporate world to get financial gain or other gain out of it. So cybersecurity is a countermeasure to that. So if you have bank robbers going out and looting a bank, you have police to enforce that. Cybersecurity professionals are sort of the law enforcement or protection against nefarious actors in the online world.
Wow, you guys are the good guys, huh? The good cops.
You might have heard of the term white hat, gray hat, or black hat. These are essentially hats that people wear and what the intentions are. Black hat hackers are essentially people who have malicious intentions for what the actions are. They have the same skill sets as a white hat hacker, but they use their skills for nefarious activities, versus a white hat hacker tries to find those loopholes of security vulnerabilities in any system and then patches them before they can be exploited by someone else.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So what motivates you to be a white hat hacker? Like, with the knowledge that you have, you can easily do nefarious activities and like maybe make a lot of money. Why are you here being a white hat hacker? What motivates you to do so?
Honestly, I haven't really thought about becoming a black hat hacker. You have conferences. It's all about gaining knowledge for me. Doing something through monetary gain doesn't really help anyone. and it becomes an ethical thing. And most people who are in the security space are there for ethical reasons. And most people I talk to in my space will have similar motivations, either to gain knowledge or to find out something which essentially it furthers them in their own career.
Cool. Well, Vatsalya, is anything actually ever secure on the internet? Because you said everything is interconnected, and it's like, can there ever be 100% security, or is there always loopholes to hack? How does it work?
So I'd say everything is secure until someone breaks it, right? Everything is. I can say that my system is secure right now, and you can come the next day and go, no, it's not, because I found a security vulnerability in your system. So it's always a race between people who are trying to protect or put defenses around an application and people who are trying to break those defenses, and it just becomes a competition against two people trying to do the opposite, the same thing, maybe faster against each other. So that's one way of looking at it. Particularly, there's something called zero-day exploits, and you'll find that most of these systems will have a zero-day vulnerability. Zero-day means it has never been seen before in the world, and what people do against something like that is they have to immediately patch all the systems against a zero-day that comes out. So if you use Linux, going into a bit more technical details here, but if you use Linux as an operating system, recently there was a vulnerability released in a program called sudo. Now, sudo is a program that grants administrative privileges to a Linux-based environment, similar to how you have the Windows administrator prompt to say, hey, do you give admin access to this program or to install it? In Linux, you'll have to do a sudo command to say, I explicitly want to give administrative privileges to do some task. There was a vulnerability recently which allowed someone to bypass the sudo requirement and then essentially gain admin access to someone's device. Now that's one type of zero-day exploit that was immediately released, and the security community went nuts over it, where they had to immediately patch essentially all Linux servers in the world. And there are millions of them, potentially even billions.
Wow. So zero-day expert is like somebody who's looking to do something, like kind of a record-breaking hack, right? The hack that has never happened. You want to break the record and you want to take it to the next level. And then everybody's got to go fix that record that was broken.
Essentially.
Wow. So there's never anything completely secure. I love the statement that you just said. You're secure until somebody finds a loophole. And that's true with your home as well, right? You're secure if you have a lock, unless somebody finds the key to the lock, and then you have to put another level of security and work it out, or like put another wall or fence. Pretty cool.
I'll probably add on to that just a bit more, is that every organization has a risk appetite, or every person has a risk appetite to what they can successfully invest in versus what the return they get. If you're trying to secure a blog website, which has no financial risk if it gets hacked, your risk appetite will be much lower than, let's say, Facebook, whose risk appetite means they have to invest billions in just ensuring that the application is secure so that their data doesn't get leaked, because to them their data is most critical to them. Similarly, in your home, you won't if you have a shed outside, which is not that important, you probably just put a lock, a simple lock on there with a deadbolt in your house to protect your valuable assets. It's very similar to that.
That's a great analogy. So, Vatsalya, like, why is privacy becoming a bigger and bigger topic in discussion, according to you?
In my opinion, I think there's a few factors that lead up to privacy becoming such a huge factor. It's the generation that we're living in, primarily, where millennials care a lot more about what they are putting online as opposed to the baby boomer generation, for example, who are happy to share their photos on Facebook or give their data to a third party to then make their life easier. So that's one aspect of it. Let me think. There's a few ideas that we can put behind in terms of why privacy is becoming that important. But essentially, privacy is an individual's right to ownership of their own data, right? And when you use a free service on the internet, you're not the consumer. You're essentially a product. To them, you are the thing that's making them money. So they don't really care about you as a person. They care about what you can bring to give to them, so that they can then target advertisement to you to become a revenue source. That's why when you use something like Facebook or Gmail, you see these ads that are especially targeted to you. So if you search like baby cots on Google, next thing you see ads on around the internet around with baby cots, because that's what you are. You're a product for them to monetize. Um, Now and when people have started noticing that this is the revenue source for most companies, it becomes a thing about they're getting into my mind, right? They know what I'm thinking. I'll give you a very, I think it's a very popular example for some, and maybe not that popular for others. But in the US, I think I'm not sure what retail market it was, but essentially what they were trying to do was they were trying to target expectant mothers to give them recommendations or discounts in their vouchers. Like you have your rewards programs and you get recommendations on the vouchers booklets, so that that organization wanted to come up with an algorithm to predict when they would be expectant and then give them recommendations so their sales would be boosted. Now, this is a great idea for them to increase what they're purchasing, but and it comes from a lot of data points that they've collected over years, and all the data that is now being used to predict someone else's purchase habits and give them recommendations. And you might find that helpful for you. Like you might enjoy that, and some people may not. What happened here is that there was this young girl in high school, and that retail store started sending this young girl recommendations on baby powders and other childbirth expectant products. And that her father, who's because she's still a minor, her father said, went to the store, complained to the manager saying, "Are you trying to get my kid pregnant? She's still in high school." And as the manager apologized, and then they tried to go into back end to see what happened. A week later, the father comes into the store and says, "Hey, I have to give you an apology. There are things that's happening around my house that I'm not aware of, and my daughter is indeed pregnant." So the company knew before the father that their daughter was pregnant just because of these data points that they've collected. Now, to them, you are an anonymized data point, but and their goal is to sell your product. But if you can put an identity to the name or to those data points and start churning down essentially who you're trying to target, that becomes a major security and privacy concern for individuals like me and many other people.
Wow, that is nuts. So that's almost like, yeah, that's one security and privacy concern that we hear. Like the Indian election or the American election is literally affected, and people can use Facebook to affect the whole general elections of a country and a population. But then when it comes to the individual, it becomes even more scary, because like somebody could literally potentially predict when you're pregnant, or even influence you to get pregnant or not, or take other decisions, which is crazy. Wow. But sometimes I wonder though, and this is just me thinking out loud, whether like it's just that the influence has become global. Like back in the day, let's say you had a small friend group, you would still be influenced by them, whether you would get pregnant or not, or your social circle. But it's just that the influence has become global, and monetizing factors can now affect it can influence you more than maybe ever they could in the history of the world.
Sure. With privacy comes trust as well, right? You would trust your inner friend circle a lot more than you would trust the company.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a great point.
You can't just put a pointer on privacy without putting a factor around trust and what again comes back to the risk appetite of an individual versus risk appetite of a larger organization. But you wouldn't trust this data with you would trust this data with your confidence, your close friends, your family, versus you wouldn't trust this with a random company that could use this information to sell you products, monetize it, and do it for commercial gain. Capitalism.
So true. That's a great point, Vatsalya. So here's a follow-up question. Like, should we be wary and scared of tech giants and the misuse of our data? Because there's somebody who's in this industry who sees things. So should we be wary and scared of these tech giants like Facebook, WhatsApp, or many others? Not to point out just one.
I don't want to give a biased information around this, but I personally tried, like, I'm active on social media and I'm very, very active on social media, but the persona that I put up there is not the same persona that I would have with my close friend. It's something that I'm consciously making a decision to put online, and I know that that data is going to be collected and used either to build a profile around me or something else. Now that's my personal opinion, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Which is why the question, if are you supposed to be scared, feels a bit loaded. I'll approach it from a different way. Is if you're okay with using these services and you don't really mind being shown targeted ads for certain products once in a while to for the company to use it, that's your prerogative, and you should be fine doing it. The concern lies is when this data that they've collected around you can be used for things like law enforcement, can be used for things like tracking, can be used for other government organizations to then influence voting democracy. When you start getting to these topics, it becomes very hard to predict what the power of actual social media is. And politicians are using that. They're using these online tools to advertise and promote their own agendas, let's say. Case in point would be Donald Trump in the US election. Now, I wouldn't want to go there, but he's been using Twitter for his own gain for a while now. And now that Twitter has actually banned him with other social media providers banning him because of the Capitol riots, he moved to a more free speech platform called Parler, which then also had an influx of massive followers who followed Donald Trump and his ideologies. And you can see that people tend to follow a massive voice. And if there's a platform out there for people to use to spread hate speech or spread just spread hate speech and influence people's thoughts in a negative way, it can be very damning to use these platforms.
Recently, there was a big issue where it showed up that WhatsApp was collecting your data and sharing it with Facebook. And
Yep.
a lot of people tweeted and they switched to Signal, which is another more private app. And Elon Musk, I think, tweeted switched to Signal. So what's up with WhatsApp? What's up with WhatsApp being such a famous messaging app? What should we know and be careful of while using WhatsApp?
Okay. So let's put it this way: when WhatsApp was acquired by Facebook about 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I don't remember the exact time frame, but Facebook's main goal for WhatsApp was to increase its user base and sell. Like Facebook acquired WhatsApp to increase its monetary power and increase the user base as a whole. And in countries like India, Brazil, and other such countries, WhatsApp was a very powerful medium because it was the first text messaging service that didn't require you to go through carriers, and then work cross-platform. If you remember, in the old days, personally coming from Calcutta, we used to use BlackBerry, and BBM was a very popular service that people had. But you also have to remember that you had to pay for BBM monthly to then get access to an instant messaging service. When WhatsApp launched in India and other countries like that, it was so popular because you could use it with any phone, almost any phone. It used very little data. It was instant messaging, and you could share photos and other such things. So before messaging came on Facebook, it was there on WhatsApp, and it used phone numbers instead of having to sign up for a new account. So it became that popular, and Facebook saw a massive investment in it. Fast forward to, if you remember, the Edward Snowden breaches. I'll compare that to Signal. So Edward Snowden, he essentially released a lot of documents to the general public using WikiLeaks. And then he had to use an encrypted private messaging service to escape the country and still be able to talk to the media. So the service that he used to do that was actually Signal. And Signal has been around for that long. However, it hasn't been popular. It has been more famous in the security space. And I personally have been using Signal for about 5 years now.
Oh, okay.
That said, it was very hard to get people on board to Signal. So whenever I had my personal friends ask me what platform you would use, I said I use Signal, and I would recommend you get onto Signal. But if you don't, I'm also there on other platforms to get in touch. So it's not like I have completely cut off other social media platforms, but if possible, I would prefer to use Signal to communicate. That's the key benefit of both what WhatsApp provide and what Signal provide is called end-to-end encryption. End-to-end encryption states that only you and the person who you're sending the message to are able to see the contents of that message. Even if it passes through WhatsApp servers, even if it passes to Facebook servers, even no matter how it gets routed to the internet, only you have the decryption key for the message that I sent, and only I have the decryption key for the message that you sent. Now, there's an algorithm that they use to generate these keys and distribute it on first try. And essentially, after that, all messages are encrypted. Now, they're encrypted, but they're not verified. Like, technically, anyone can spoof your phone number and send me messages. So if you open your WhatsApp right now, I'll show you something that WhatsApp does to verify that you are the one who's sending me the messages. So if you open WhatsApp and open any contact, and then click on the contact information, there should be an encryption section at the below the bunch of options. If you click on encryption, there's a QR code that it generates.
Correct.
So if I scan the QR code for your phone number, then I know from now on any message that you send is actually verified. This has to be an out-of-band transaction because you can't trust the messaging service to both encrypt and verify the service. So end-to-end encryption is a thing, and we can trust the fact that these chats are encrypted, but we can't verify who is actually sending it unless we do an out-of-band transaction. So I go and meet you personally and I scan your code to know that you are the one who's actually sending me those messages. If the scan fails, then I know that someone else has been sending me messages. So there are two different things: encryption, then verification. Now, Signal also provides a very similar thing to verify who's sending, because that's an actual problem you can't solve, where it's a key exchange problem, where how do you trust the first communication to be encrypted and not expect anyone to be able to intercept those encryption keys and essentially be a man in the middle. So that's why it has to be an out-of-band communication where I send you my encryption key, can you verify it? And you send me my encryption key, I can verify it. And the best way to do that is in person.
Wow, cool. So in general, would you say you trust WhatsApp, or for a general person to use WhatsApp and not be scared of your data being shared with Facebook, or for your data to be shared for them to target ads to you?
So that's different. That is different.
Okay.
Your chat data is encrypted. The photos that you send are encrypted. Your video calls are encrypted. Anything outside that is not, and that will not be encrypted. So your location information, so essentially all the data, metadata, is essentially called metadata about you. So your communication with the other person will be encrypted, but everything around except that will not be. So all the permissions that you give to the application at the start, it can be collecting information points about you throughout the day, and that data itself is not encrypted. Facebook never says it is encrypted. So the way you can understand what data WhatsApp is collecting is if you go into your WhatsApp settings again, and if you go into account, there's a button called request account info.
Yes.
So if you click that and you say, I want my account info, WhatsApp is legally obligated, or at least in Europe, is legally obligated to send all data that is there about you on servers to you. And that's an export that you can have and understand what data WhatsApp is collecting over time about you. And if you don't like what it's collecting, you can stop using the service.
This is cool. This is cool. Guys, request account info. Check it out on your WhatsApp, and you can get a report of everything that WhatsApp is collecting from you, and then you can make an informed decision whether you're cool with it or not. That is cool. That is cool to know, Vatsalya. Thanks for sharing that. I've been using WhatsApp for so long, but I don't even know about this, and I'm glad that we just spoke about this.
Anytime, Naren. So these are things that are available to you on not just WhatsApp, but Facebook, Google, Instagram, and all other social media platforms that are that you may be using because of a law in Europe called GDPR. And we can get to GDPR a bit later in this talk.
Okay, cool. So, Vatsalya, like to ask you simply, are you scared of lack of privacy, or are you not? Somebody who's been in the industry, somebody who knows the industry and knows cybersecurity.
I'm scared of the implications of my data being collected, but I'm not scared of the lack of privacy because I know the kind of age we live in, and information age means that information about you would be collected at some point or the other. If you want to be fully disconnected from the world, then you have to be fully disconnected from the internet, and then you have to live like a nomad essentially.
That's a tough life. So yeah, Vatsalya, like I was speaking to a buddy of mine who's also into tech, and he's a futurist, so he's very much into like what would happen in the future, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me a statement, and I want to run it by you. He said, in the future, we would be laughing that we were so scared of lack of privacy because nothing will be private in the future. Everything will be shared with everybody. In fact, like what's going on in your brain and the chips will be connected. That's what he said, and he's a futurist, and of course, it's a prediction. But he said we would be laughing thinking about how we were fighting for privacy rights because nothing would be private. What do you think about this statement?
I can't comment on it. Honestly, it's someone else's thought, and I can't give an accurate comment. What I'll say from my own perspective is that privacy will and always be important to some people, and specifically governments around the world, because they are not with the private they're not with the private tech companies. They care about their own organization. They care about their own country. And you can see that in the current battle between Australia and the tech giants of the news, the media code legislation, which forces them to pay for linking news websites on their service. So they will protect their own assets before they go for private tech companies. So privacy will always be a thing, in my opinion. However, what you consider privacy as a definition might change. What you feel would be more lax about you, and what you feel that is okay to give to people versus what is okay not to give to people will change. That's what I think.
So interesting. I think you're so right. Like 10 years ago, if somebody was knowing my location the whole time, I would be scared. But right now, I think I'm lax about it. Okay, yeah, like Google Maps is collecting my location, but at the same time, I'm getting benefit from it and being able to navigate from one city to another. So my definition of privacy has changed in my mind. That's such a cool point. But it's amazing that you mentioned that privacy will always be important. It's just that the definition of privacy might change, and how government acts as a different force compared to the corporates, and for them, privacy will be important because they have their own organizational agendas.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool too. Vatsalya, what's like the latest new cool thing in the world of cybersecurity and data privacy?
Cybersecurity is actually really boring. I'm not going to give you a glamorous picture of me sitting in front of green screen terminals and trying to hack into systems all day long. That is not what, with a hoodie on and having a mask. That's not what cybersecurity is. No matter how much movies try to paint a picture of it, that is not what cybersecurity is. It's about making informed decisions to make, in my case, an organization more secure, to then protect our assets and our customers' assets. That's a different field altogether called security research, where all they try to do as their entire life is try to break into systems, whether it be Windows, whether it be a cloud service, whether it be organizations, governments, whatever. All they would like to do is to try to find a new security vulnerability, a security loophole, and publish their work and publish it as research for people to identify and come up with new methods of attacking. So in the world of cybersecurity, there'll always be something new because there's always research going on, and that's in any field, right? You can say a doctorate in any in physics would try to come up with something new, and let's say there's some breakthrough in string theory, for example, and that can be a massive thing. But there's always people working towards a new breakthrough, a new idea. Recently, as I said, zero-day vulnerabilities come out daily. Like there's always a new zero-day vulnerability in something or the other. The key aspect of cybersecurity for me is personal security, and then with it comes with things like multi-factor authentication, password managers, and protecting your data online, and then also understanding uh, what technical aspects you can use to break into systems. So there are two sort of different sides of the coin. But if there's any news research that comes out, I try to keep up to date with using RSS feeds or messages from my colleagues that work in the same space.
So like you said, like it's not always a glamorous field, but what got you into this field and why are you so interested and passionate about it, even since college days and now you're working in it full time?
So I studied software engineering in university, and software engineering it allowed me to build things, but I also liked breaking things. So a lot of times when you find a security vulnerability, it starts with a software bug, where there's an unintended side effect to a solution or a way of approaching a problem, and that most times leads to a security vulnerability. And breaking stuff and trying to find new ways of trying to do the same thing was what got me into cybersecurity in the first place. Then from there, I started researching a bit more into this field in a technical sense, understanding what it would take for me to progress in this either as a career or as a hobby. Because my current role as a technical lead in cybersecurity only started a few months ago. Before that, I was a software developer working for the same company. And I've always wanted to work in this field. And what I did was incorporate my knowledge in building more secure software, but I was never working in cybersecurity full time. I got this opportunity and immediately jumped on it because I felt that I can probably help more people do what I did in the code that I wrote. That's what I want to get out of it, or that's why I got into it.
That's pretty cool, Vatsalya. Any cool tools and apps that you would recommend? Some of the things that you've already shared with us, like checking a report on WhatsApp or using Signal, but any other such cool tools or apps that you would recommend for us, for people who care about being more private and not sharing that data as openly?
Sure. So I read this thing called the Lazy Person's Guide to Not Getting Hacked. It's essentially what a layman would want to do to keep themselves safe from any attack, whether it be losing access to the bank accounts for small monetary or major monetary loss, to as simple as being tracked with the cameras being hacked on their device. I'll start with saying, keep everything up to date. Regardless of what you keep ignoring Windows updates or your OS updates or Android apps. One of the reasons why these updates are there is to fix security patches, and they can't really disclose that information or directly disclose that information to you, because that means they would be giving away critical information about the system. That said, not all security work is private, but most security work would not be disclosed by companies, and they would just release it as patches or updates to your system, because that's how they know that you're running a secure version of the software. And then they have to pad that with new features, because why would you just want to update the software if you're not getting anything new? So feature releases and security updates. So you'll see a lot of times it's new features and bug fixes in the app update. And you're like, why getting the same? It's because they're either trying to fix a security flaw, or they're just doing small bug fixes that make your day-to-day experience better. It might only impact 1% of the population, but even that 1% is critical to a massive user base. So Personally, there's a few things that I do in order to keep myself safe. The biggest thing I would say, or the two big things I would say, is multi-factor authentication and password management, password managers. I'll also give you some websites that you can understand to see if you have ever been in a data breach. And if so, you need to change those passwords for those sites immediately and use password managers. So password manager is a tool that safely stores all of your passwords, and only you can have access to them using a master password. So all you have to do is remember one password, and it then stores passwords to your Facebook, Gmail, WhatsApp, whatever other online services you use. What it allows you to do is not have to remember random complex passwords. And secondly, you can then create like a 25-character password and not worry about what benefit, not worry about remembering them. So what some people do with their passwords is, if they have to create different passwords for different sites, they'll be like, okay, is my password for Facebook? I'll go, okay, some random phrase I have with Facebook 1 exclamation mark, because you need to have capital letters, and that is not a secure way of writing passwords, because if someone guesses a pattern, it's very easy to crack for other websites. There's a bunch of things called dictionary attacks, which allow people to use these patterns to guess passwords and break these hashes. So I'll get into data breaches a bit later, but firstly, get onto a password manager as soon as you can and then change passwords for most of your services to a randomly generated password. What this will let you do is give you a bit of peace of mind that you're firstly not having to worry about any of your passwords, and you can use it on your browsers, your desktop, your phone, your iPad, and it will just autofill those passwords for you. That's one aspect to your personal online presence. The second thing would be cool. Multi-factor authentication. Now, in the security world, we've come to a consensus just that knowing something doesn't mean that you are secure. Like there's a 3-step guide to multi-factor is what you know, what you are. I'll get back to it, but essentially it's 3 steps to improving your online security. So what you know is essentially a password or a PIN or some characters that you have in your memory. What you have can be like a phone or a device. And then what you are can be like your face ID, your bioprint, and other physical security devices. So these essentially, what you know is the least level security. And that information can easily be extracted, or if someone gets that information somehow, let's say, what's your mother's maiden name? These questions can easily be either come up in conversations or something else. So that's one level of it. Multi-factor authentication essentially adds another layer of security, where once you enter a password, you're prompted for a one-time code, either through an SMS, a mobile app, or physical security, or your face bioprint. So these can be classified as something that only you have. No one else in the world will be able to spoof these information, because you're the one that it's a one-time 6-digit code that once you use is refreshed and will never be seen again. Now, all major services have multi-factor authentication. I can even show you my multi-factor app right now, and because these codes are randomly generated, once these apps are done, I don't have to I don't mind showing them at all right now. So I use this program called Authy, and you'll see. Firstly, it asks for my fingerprint to even log me into the app. I get onto the app here. And then you can see it's all the 2-factor authentication codes for all of the websites that I use.
Oh, wow.
And if I want to log into Twitter, for example, so this is my Twitter authentication code. If I'm logging into Twitter, I have to put this in after I put my password. And then if I want to log into, let's say, Google, a similar thing, Facebook, similar thing.
What is this app called?
Authy, A-U-T-H-Y. There's also other alternatives.
Authy.
There's alternatives such as Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, and a bunch of these other 2-factor authentication apps. The way you sign up to it is by, if you go into most services, there'll be account settings section, and inside account settings there'll be a security and privacy. Within security and privacy, you usually you'd find a set of two-factor authentication. Now that can be either a phone number, so they'll say, I'll send you an SMS every time you log in, and banks do that sometimes. So banks would by default enroll into a two-factor auth provider, and then they would say, hey, use this OTP to log in. That OTP is essentially a two-factor auth method for you to not just have your password, but also your phone with you. Now, phone numbers have essentially been, phone numbers are not a good way of doing two-factor, because there have been attacks against which people can use mobile number portability to spoof your identity with a telecom provider, and then change that phone number to their account, and then they get the two-factor auth codes. And these attacks have actually been used against pretty high-profile cases to then get access to other people's accounts. Wow. So, which is why an app-based method such as Google Authenticator is more recommended. That's still not fully what I use. This is sort of a backup two-factor authentication. My primary two-factor authentication is this key. It's a hardware token that I have to carry with me at all times to log into any service. If I don't have it, that's when I have to use my backup two-factor auth. So this security key is called a UB key.
Okay.
And what it does is every time I have to log into a service, I plug this into my laptop, and I have to tap on it. It can be protected with biometrics, or just essentially you have this key, and if you don't have it, the website won't let you log in. It generates a random secure string that is assigned with your identity, and they have the public key of it. So every time you enter it, you have to send a matching key to the website, and they say, okay, I verified, I can log you in. So that's my way of protecting myself on online services.
Wow, what is that called? YubiKey.
YubiKey. Most people don't have to go this hardcore into protecting themselves with two-factor. A mobile app is more than enough to do that. But just for me and the kind of data that I would have to deal with on a commercial level, that I have to use a security key to protect myself.
That's cool, man. That makes you sound so cool as well. Like, seriously, this is real stuff, man. Like, carrying a literal key for your online password, and if you don't have the key. Wow, that's cool. That's cool. We're talking about a tool that you can use to check if your email account has been hacked. So tell me a little bit more about who started, how you know him, and then the website.
Sure. So because we've been talking about online privacy, online security, we also know that websites are always getting hacked. Essentially, most services will be hacked at some point or have already been hacked. So what this service does, it's called Have I Been Pwned? It's a guide to personal security where someone can check if their email address has previously appeared in a data breach. Now, what this person does, he's a colleague of mine called Troy Hunt. He is a security researcher based out of Australia, and he's presented to the U.S. Department of Defense as well on a panel about online security. What he does is he finds these breaches online, either gets sent by someone else as a security researcher, or finds it in a data collection dump on the deep web. He collates this information, anonymizes it so that it's only email addresses and passwords, and he decouples them so that it's not my email address linked with my password, but has my email address appeared in a breach and has my password appeared in a breach.
It's called haveibeenpwned.com.
Yep, have I been PWND. And essentially what it does is I am typing my email address, and I know that it's appearing on this, so I can use it everywhere. And it says I have appeared in 6 different data breaches, and these are all the websites that my the email address appeared in a breach. So then I know. So some of these are data aggregators, which means I don't really have an account with them, and it tells you what was there. Email addresses, geographic location, skills, username. So GeekDin is a data aggregator for LinkedIn. Zeroday is a massive collection of username and password linked together, and thehash.com provided it to have been pwned. Other websites, Zomato, Nitro, Adobe, BTCE, These are all websites that I would have used at some point, and this particular email address has been breached, so I had to go ahead and change my passwords for them, and which is why I would use LastPass to then change my password. Similarly, passwords. I'll actually do one thing so that you can see what I'm typing. Uh, Type text. So if I type, let's say, password 1, it has been seen 24,000 times. If and then I can go like C @ $W0 RD. And some people do that. They like change things, but that doesn't mean your password is more secure. It's been seen 225 times. So 225 times someone has used this password. And people, this is what people do when it comes to like making a complex password is they have a phrase and then they start using leak speak or changing some of the characters or adding, let's say, exclamation mark at the end to make the password more secure, because that's the requirement is you have to have a capital letter, some special characters, a number. So that's what people have been told a better password is. But if I say this password has never been seen before, 123, I can use this as a password. It's a passphrase. I can, and it's no one has ever used it. But so that's the kind of things that you can understand, that a nice passphrase is better than a complicated 8-character password. And a really good XKCD, if you've heard of XKCD,
bro, if you could zoom your screen a little bit, we might be able to see better. Yeah, thank you.
So this is it's a bunch of comics around security and online internet, and it's just some good humor comics, but it shows that this type of a password, if it takes 3 days, 1,000 guesses per second. So if you have 1,000 guesses per second to brute force this, it will take you 3 days to break it. But 4 random words like horse, battery, staple would take you 550 years to guess it, but it's a more secure password. And instead of this, where you just showing how like some of these tools can improve your security posture online. But just see if you have been appeared in a breach before. You can also subscribe to it. Let's say go to notify me and say enter my email address. So if have I been phoned this email address again at some other time, it'll notify you and you can immediately go and change your password.
That is cool. This is
the person who actually wrote this is Troy Hunt, and that's him, and he also has a Twitter. So try again if Twitter opens up sometimes. Guest. Yeah. So this is the person who built this site a few years ago, and he has been very prominent in the online security world.
Vatsalya, anything else that you would like to say at the end as we wrap up? And this was time flew by because we had such interesting conversations and such amazing answers from you. But anything else that you would like to say at the end, or ask me something?
I'll just probably wrap up by saying that everyone has to think about their own security. No one else is coming to protect you from things that are out there, and you probably won't be able to do that for just yourself, but also your family, because you probably are the tech person if you're listening to this podcast, or trying to keep up with technology as a whole. And if you're the tech person in your family, don't just try to influence your online life, but also your families and your friends around you. And that's how we can make the world a more secure place.
Nice. Vatsalya, thank you so much. The main takeaway, I think, if we put it in a minute, is, guys, keep your apps updated. Be conscious that anything that you put on social media may be used. So just put out the stuff that you are comfortable being used. Might as well just have that backup and net in your mindscape about what's being used. And thirdly, two-factor authentication. I think that was cool. Two-factor authentication and password managers, where you use just one password, one master key. to set up all your passwords. I mean, if anything that can be used as actionable from this conversation are these four main things. So thank you so much, Vatsalya.
Thanks, Naren. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you, Vatsalya. Thanks for sharing your awesome expertise and knowledge with us, and showing us a little bit of your world of cybersecurity and helping us understand it in simpler terms, because I think these things tend to get complicated. I'm happy I have a friend like you that came and shared. Thank you so much, Vatsalya.
Glad to be here.